Birds fans, appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You got you guys, Mac, John McMullen, and Jody McDonald here to hang with you for the next 2 hours as we get that much closer to week number 15, game number 14 for the 12-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Speaking of numbers, today is show number 427. For your buddies here on Birds 365.
I haven't checked in with the number for a while.
I haven't given it out in a number. Took it off the calendar.
Creeping up on the big one, 500. Creeping up.
That will come sometime, depending on how long the Eagles season goes. Hopefully, in a march to the Super Bowl. Johnny Mac, how was walkthrough Wednesday?
It was good. It was productive. A lot of good stuff from players. More of the locker room. Got to talk to Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, Jordan Mailata, a little Lane Johnson. So good, productive day.
Well, I want to ask you about one in particular, and then I do want to hear from all those guys. Jalen Hurts, you mentioned the quarterback.
And Jalen, spoke to Jalen.
Yeah. In the MVP conversation, on top of the MVP pile, depending on how you look at a lot of different ways, you can do just that. He was asked about the supposed disrespect by Micah Parsons.
Such disrespect. Such blatant disrespect.
Blatant disrespect. You and I are not as vexed or worked up about it as some Eagle fans seem to be, or members of the media here in town. Jalen Hurts was out of his mind crazy about it, wasn't he? His response was,
I think 5 words. Bears. Yeah, we're focused on the Bears. I think it was,
So for all of those who thought that this was like an offense of the highest nature, the guy who was supposedly offended couldn't bother to even respond. That he is kind of staying focused on the task at hand, which is winning this week against Chicago.
I think it's ironic. I was telling Tone on our Football 24/7 yesterday. I think, Micah probably pissed off the Cowboy fans too, because he talks so glowingly about the Eagles. I think the whole thing is comical. I really do at this point. I watched it again. I said, all right, what am I missing? So I went back and I watched it again. No, I'm not missing anything. It's ludicrous. It's nothing. He, as I said, the people in Dallas are probably upset at him for speaking so glowingly about the Eagles, as he should, by the way. Jordan Mailata probably gave the better answer. At least for people that wanted it. He went the same direction as Jalen. We're focused on the Bears, but he did say Micah should focus on who he's playing. And he said, I don't know who the fuck they're playing, but he should focus on that. Jordan's funny.
They're kind of playing Dougie P and the Jags this week, which I think could be an interesting game. The same way I think the Bears.
Well, they're better than Houston. I'll say that.
Right. This past week, and I saw someone write an interesting take on this, and it rang true to me because that I made a wager previous this year that Von Miller, whose podcast Micah Parsons made the comment on, has got a future as a member of the media, because he kind of set Micah Parsons up for that. What he was saying led to Micah Parsons saying what he said, which ticked everybody off. I think that it was more than a Jalen Hurts thing. It was a quarterback thing. I told you 10 weeks ago, whenever it was, like 3 weeks into the season, somewhere thereabouts, I was checking out the odds for the MVP. And Micah Parsons was on the list. And he'd gotten off to this great start, gotten a bunch of sacks. I said, 500 to 1? What the hell? Let me throw $500 on Micah Parsons just in case he has this unbelievable season and the Cowboys are this good and they somehow thwart the Eagles. At least I'll score $2,500 for $5. So let me just kind of cover my backside here. And I did. I threw $5 on Micah Parsons as the MVP of the NBA, of the NFL at 500 to 1. And I think Micah Parsons thinks of himself as the MVP. Because there are betting markets where you can bet on him. Everybody else is a quarterback. I think it was more a quarterback thing. If you'd asked them about Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or Tua Tagovailoa, I guarantee you would have said something similar to what he said about Jalen Hurts. It's a team game. It's a quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's
teammates.
I think in general there's a frustration with positional players that they don't get the credit that quarterbacks get, and they don't. And too many people boil it down to quarterback versus quarterback, and you'll hear it all the time. Well, you're not beating Peyton Manning. You're not beating Tom Brady. Well, maybe not, but maybe back in the day, some Miami could have a big week and beat Indianapolis, or your Jets could have a big week and beat New England. It's not quarterback versus quarterback. So there's definitely some of that amongst positional players. Now it's generally geared outward. You love your own quarterback, especially when he's playing at an MVP level, like Jalen Hurts is. But yeah, I mean, the Eagles have a lot of good players, man. A lot of good players. And that's not an insult to Jalen Hurts. I don't know why people think that's an insult to Jalen Hurts.
Exactly.
It's not like Jalen Hurts is going to be upset if you tell him he's got a lot of good players. In fact, he loves it. He'd rather talk about them than himself. It's bizarre to me. The ironic thing is if Micah said, oh, Jalen Hurts is carrying that team, people would have been pissed off too.
Right.
They would have said, what about Lane Johnson?
Disrespecting
what about
A.J. Brown and the defense? Is he not noticing how good our defense is? You answered the question. Someone can, in their own mind, spin it any way they want to say that it's disrespectful.
And that's what I said yesterday. That's the problem. If I were Mike McCarthy, and he can't, these are grown men, but if I would try to steer guys away from this stuff, because I said it yesterday on the show. You can't control other people's perceptions. And you're certainly, when it's Cowboys versus Eagles, you're certainly not going to get positive feedback for any. As I said, if he went the other direction and gave Jalen all the credit, they would have been angry about the disrespect to Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson shut Micah Parsons down. That's where you would have been, Jody. That's where you would have been. And that's why I think Jalen's way and Jordan's way yesterday about, we're focused on the Bears. We essentially don't give a you-know-what. That's the way to go. Absolutely. Because you can't control other people's perceptions.
And the perception should be that they're the best team in the National Football League. Jalen Hurts is right now the leader for the MVP. And there's a comma in there, not a period, just a comma. And the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. And the reason why the Eagles are 12-1, even more so than the MVP performance that Jalen Hurts is giving, is because the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. We talked about this a lot prior to the season. And funny, most times it was in respect to the Dallas Cowboys, that if you looked at the Cowboys and the Eagles, player 1 through 44, 45-man roster on game day, Johnny Mac?
46, might be, they changed it, 47.
47, okay.
47.
So 1 through 46, we thought the Eagles were better than the Cowboys. We thought the Eagles had a better roster. But that 47th spot, you had a Dak Prescott who had accumulated a career more so than Jalen Hurts at this point, that might be a place where before the season started, you said, all right, the Cowboys have an advantage at quarterback. Damn, has that changed in 13 weeks? Unbelievable. But that's what I said. You said even most Eagle fans before the season started had to agree that was the case. Well, the gap between the Cowboys and the Eagles on the 1 through 46 has grown even more. And then, oh, by the way, 47 is now advantage Philadelphia over Dallas. And we didn't see it coming, but it all started with the Eagles were better 1 through 46.
Oh, yeah.
But they had a better team than the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah. And I said that pretty early in the process when it became clear that, Dallas is very top heavy. I said, they have some really good players at the top of their roster. Micah Parsons probably being number one. He's not the best defensive player in the game. He's right there with Aaron Donald or Nick Bosa.
Nick Bosa.
You can throw
Either of the
Joey.
Bosa.
You can
Pick a
throw
Bosa, any
either
Bosa.
pick a Bosa. But yeah, Nick more. Nick's probably going to be Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles are deeper. The Eagles are more well-rounded, and that's shown. And now they have a better quarterback, and I don't know how many people thought that part of the equation was going to happen. They can say it now, but nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw this leap coming from Jalen Hurts, and that's not an insult. It's
you're being disrespectful, John. You better be careful.
Well, I know. I get I'm being disrespectful. I built my platform on hating Jalen Hurts. That's what I got this week. These people. Watch the press conference. Jalen and I have a good relationship because he thinks I'm fair. He's short a lot, but when I ask questions, he'll answer questions. Not he'll give me something. Obviously Jalen Hurts isn't ever going to be away from the Nick Saban, but he generally doesn't give me the 2 or 3 word answers that sometimes he shuts people down with. He's got no problem with constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is not hate. Giving your honest opinion on something is not hate. The guy who I'm hating doesn't have a problem with me. There are a lot of fans who have a problem with me because I wouldn't kowtow to, he's great because he's wearing an Eagles jersey, which is basically what they're doing. It doesn't matter who's playing. They're going to say the next guy's great, and hopefully Jalen's here for 10 years and has many Pro Bowls and has multiple Super Bowls. Hopefully that all happens. But whomever the next guy is, Jody, they're going to say he's great right off the bat until they start hating on him.
One of which was Dan Orlovsky from ESPN, who forever was a Carson Wentz apologist, but he has artfully dodged the rest of Carson's career and moved on to Jalen Hurts, is showing the most improvement ever in the history of a quarterback. And you want to know something's right?
I don't. Dan can defend himself, but I think a lot of people in this town thought Carson Wentz was the stinking answer in 2017. I know the Eagles thought it for damn sure.
All right, but at some point you had to move off it, and Orlovsky never did.
That's the point. That's the people you should focus on. The people who can't say they were wrong. I thought Jalen had a ceiling that was much lower than what he's playing now. I freely admit it. I'm wrong. I got no problem admitting I was wrong. The people that still say today that he's not capable of doing this, and what drives me crazy is so-and-so can't win a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a damn Super Bowl. Jeff Hostetler won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl to get Eagles fans really upset. Don't give me Lamar Jackson can't win a Super Bowl. Don't give me Jalen Hurts can't win a Super Bowl because they're dual threat quarterbacks, or even Justin Fields down the road. As more of these guys come into the NFL and everybody's looking for them, right? Then the math simply changes. And you're going to get to a point where there's 25 dual threat quarterbacks and there's 7 pocket quarterbacks. And guess what? Then the pocket quarterbacks are in trouble just from a math standpoint. So, that bothers me as well. It's a team game. It's a team game. And that goes back to our original point with Micah Parsons, which is what he's trying to say. It's a team game. It's a team game, and they have a great team, which includes the quarterback.
Agreed. We've talked plenty about Micah Parsons, and I'll get John Stolness's take of Bleeding Green Nation. He's going to join us coming up in a couple of minutes. But one quickie before we get to John. Yesterday, you mentioned Dallas Goedert back in the locker room, out there on the practice field. We knew it was happening. The Eagles activated his 21-day practice window. We expect him to be activated for the game. We know how good Goddard is. We know the Eagle offense can only get better with the addition of him. Or is there any chance that I think of it more of an NBA sake than it does an NFL sake, that re-adding a guy onto a roster, trying to incorporate into what you're doing alike, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes getting back into the flow. Any worry about that with Goddard being reinserted into the Eagle lineup this week?
No, I mean, there's always, maybe a little bit of rust, but same with Devonta Maddox this week. No, I mean, he's too talented. You put him in there and you play through the rust, and they'll figure it out pretty quickly. I mean, the speed of the game is real. You can't replicate it, certainly in walkthroughs and practice. And when you're off for a month, there might be a little adjustment period, but they're playing the Bears. They'll get over it quickly, and he'll be a big part of the offense. And I expect him to be activated Saturday. Same thing as last week with Devonta, and he'll play his typical workload. And that's the way it should work. He's cleared. He's one of your best players. You put him on the field.
They're playing the Bears. That was disrespectful, John.
That's correct.
That was just
I'm being disrespectful.
Disrespectful.
I am being disrespectful for the Bears. They are an awful football team who doesn't seem to have a plan. That's the worst part of it. They don't seem to have a plan. They have a really talented young quarterback. And I've been talking about this, Jody, since the start of the season. Forget about the talent they put around him. I mean, that's egregious. That's one part of it. But if you're rebuilding, you want to buy into the sort of the Sam Hinkie mentality and strip it down and build it back up. All right, I'll pay lip service to that. But then they bring in an offense that doesn't take advantage of what the kid does early in the season. He looks awful. And then they kind of throw it out and say, all right, we got nothing. Just run around like a knucklehead. And by the way, he does it, and he does it effectively. They're not helping him, as opposed to what you see here with Jalen Hurts. The Eagles coaching staff's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, but didn't Nick Sirianni yesterday say Matty Eberflus is a dynamite coach that he grew up in the cult system with? He respected.
Yeah, well, he's also
so you're showing disrespect to a guy that the head coach showed plenty of respect to yesterday, McMullen.
He's also a defensive coach.
He's the head coach.
No, he don't do it like Nick. He doesn't, me and CEO coaches. I asked Nick about that yesterday. That's the way to go. The Eagles are the template for the NFL.
That was a question I was gonna ask you later in the show. We'll get to it. But next up, we're gonna get to John Stolnis, contributor of Bleeding Green Nation, hopping aboard with us here on Birds 365. So stick around.